The city was alive, but not kind. Neon lights flickered against cracked sidewalk. The air bit with cold, scraping the skin of anyone who lingered too long. Amidst the rush of footsteps and engines, a boy walked alone. His name was Jamal. I am 11 years old. No family at his side, no warmth waiting at home. Only an empty backpack that rattled with a broken notebook and a half-chewed pencil. To strangers, he looked like another forgotten child swallowed by the city. But inside those ragged clothes, behind those quiet eyes, burned something no one could see: numbers. They whispered to him from every corner of the world. The rhythm of wheels, the bend of wires, the cracks in the earth itself, everything spoke in patterns only he could hear. And on this night, those whispers would lead him to a place where his gift and his pain would collide with the fate of men who had everything to lose. The city air was sharp and cold. Jamal, just 11, clutched his empty backpack as if it held the world. Inside were only a broken notebook and a half-chewed pencil, but to him they were treasures. His shirt was torn, his shoes scuffed thin, his jacket no shield against the wind. Yet his dark eyes burned with quiet thought, carrying a fire no storm could put out. Everywhere he looked, numbers spoke to him, whispering from spinning bus wheels, humming through tangled wires, etched in the cracks of the sidewalk. The city, for Jamal, was not chaos. It was a puzzle waiting to be solved. He pressed through the revolving doors of a tall glass building, pulled in by warmth and curiosity. The air inside was bright, buzzing with tension. Voices carried down the long hallway. "Engineer, this won't work." Another voice, "The jet will fail." Through the glass walls, Jamal saw engineers with sleepless eyes, investors pacing with clenched fists, executives muttering into phones. On the whiteboard stretched across the room, tangled equations bled into each other. At the center of it all sat Mr. Grant, his shoulders heavy, his head buried in his hands. "Grant, if we can't fix this today, we lose everything." The engineers argued until their voices cracked. The investors threatened to walk away. Hope was draining from the room. But Jamal stood frozen, his gaze fixed on the board. The numbers stared back at him like old friends, and in a flash he saw it, the errors, the broken pattern. His hand itched for the marker. Before he could stop himself, he stepped into the room. "Jamal, I can fix it." Silence fell, followed by a burst of laughter. A few shook their heads, muttering about a street kid playing genius. But desperation makes strange allies. Mr. Grant raised his head, his eyes sharp and searching. "Grant, show me." Jamal trembled as he picked up the marker. His hand hovered for a heartbeat, then moved with sudden certainty. Numbers spilled out of him like water breaking through a dam, line after line, correction after correction. The chaos untangled. The errors vanished. The formula stood whole, balanced, alive. The room froze. Grant whispering, "He did it." The boy fixed it. Then came the thunder, applause, cheers, the sound of relief crashing against the glass walls. But Jamal didn't smile. He stood small, shoulders hunched, clutching the marker as if it weighed 100 pounds. "Jamal, I'm not a miracle. I'm just a boy." The applause faltered. His voice cracked as he spoke, raw and trembling. He told them of his past, how people had tried to own him, parade him like a trophy, praise his mind but ignore his heart. He had been adopted not for love, but for his gift. When the pressure became chains, he ran. "Jamal, it's better to be nobody than someone's machine." The words cut through the room. For the first time, they saw him, not as a prodigy, not as a savior, but as a child who carried both brilliance and pain. Mr. Grant's face softened. The weight of money, planes, and investors fell away in that instant. "Grant, you don't owe anyone your gift. Stay tonight. No formulas. No numbers. Just be a boy." Jamal's breath caught. His hand trembled before he slowly placed it into Grant's. Tears welled in his eyes, hot and unashamed. "Grant, no jet, no fortune is worth more than you. And that's how the world should see you." The cheers that rose then were different, gentler, deeper. They weren't for a machine that might fly. They weren't for investors saved. They were for Jamal, finally seen, not as a project, not as property, but as a person. Long after the cheers faded, after the equations were erased, the world outside still rushed on, loud, indifferent, relentless. But inside that glass building, something had changed. A boy who had been invisible was finally seen. Not for the numbers in his head, not for the problems he could solve, but for the simple truth of who he was. Jamal would still carry the weight of his gift. But tonight, for the first time, he carried something greater: dignity, belonging, the knowledge that he was more than what the world demanded of him. And perhaps, one day, when people spoke of miracles, they would not speak of planes that defied gravity or fortunes saved in an instant. They would speak of a boy who taught them the hardest equation of all, that a child's worth is never measured in numbers, but in humanity.